I thought we would return to a farming story. I had talked about how our cousin Emil Musser, who worked for the University of Illinois, had suggested to Verl that he get a boar that would produce lean meat, because this is what everyone was wanting. They were wanting lean bacon. And if you can get this into your hog line, it would benefit you greatly. And so we're going back to the story of the hog on our farm, which we named Blue Boy. This hog was a boar, and it was we had to go to Minnesota to get it, and it was through Emil that we got this boar, and it cost over $1,000, and I think the University of Illinois paid for a portion of this because we were more or less in an experimental program. And Emil also put us in TVA. Now that is called Tennessee Valley Association, I thought. TVA, maybe it's authority. But I know we were in TVA for many, many years, and we had to keep books with the University of Illinois. They would come down, and we would, our expenses, our income, our output, everything had to be recorded, and the university was in a study. From this, we got all our fertilizer at cost. It was all at cost. So it was very foolish not. Verl fertilized to the nth degree, building this land up to top quality. And he put every dime that we made, we put back into the ground. And of course, he didn't really get to see the results of his work. I think it was in 1992. Roger was farming over on our ground, and he got off of the tractor at the home place and ran into Uncle Earl's home, and he called me up and he said, Mom, get out here. I want you to see us go through the field here. And we couldn't even take, of course, Roger had big equipment and wagons that went right, the truck and the wagon went right to the field with you. They couldn't even go a half around in the field. I mean, this was a production of corn like pretty close to 200 bushel to the acre.
Wow.
And of course, we were all in tears for the fact that Verl never got to see it. I don't mean to get weepy, but that's just the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, getting back to our story about the hog, Burl decided that he really took everything that Emil said, he took very seriously, and Emil advised him always good. So he went up to Minnesota and he purchased this hog and he brought it back. Well, I thought, a boar is a boar. What difference does it make? I was very large and pregnant with Mary Dell. And that was the summer that I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the baby was supposed to be born in September. Well, it wasn't born till October, and she weighed 10 pounds. But anyway, I didn't have anything. I had a cat. The cat's name was Penny. Penny was her name. And she was my lucky penny. And she come to the house. She come to the house to be with me. Well, anyway, that summer we had went to the movies, and for us to go to the movies was quite a treat because we just didn't have no money. And but anyway, we splurged and we went to see State Fair with Jeannie Crane. And it was about this family that got ready to go to the State Fair, and how the father had this boar, which he called Blue Boy. He was a big Hampshire boar, and he would talk to this boar, and this boar would grunt, grunt, grunt back to him, and the neighbor would come over and say, "You'll never win first prize. You'll never win first prize." So their words got pretty hot, and they said, "Put your money where your mouth is." And so there was a bet made that he would not get first prize. Well, the mother, she meanwhile was in the kitchen getting ready to go to the State Fair, and her specialty was mincemeat. And she had this recipe, and she'd stir it up and everything, and then when nobody was looking, she would go to the medicine cabinet and get out the whiskey and put some whiskey in it and stir it up, and she'd say, "Now, Hilda, sample it again. That's the best you've ever made." So then the mother would go into the other room, and Hilda, she'd go to the medicine cabinet, and she'd get out the whiskey and and then stir it up, and then Grandpa would come in, and he'd say, "Taste the mincemeat." He'd taste the mincemeat. He said, "It needs a little something." Hilda said, "I think it does too." So to the medicine cabinet they went, and with more whiskey. Well, by the time they got ready to go with this thing, it was 90 proof. It was like you had been down to Joe's bar for 12 hours. But anyway, to make a long story short, when they did get to the State Fair and the judging was done on her mincemeat, the judges were 3 men, and they absolutely could not get away from her mincemeat. They would taste her mincemeat, and they'd go over to somebody else's. They'd take 1 spoon, lay it down, go over here, slurp, slurp, slurp. They would take 4 or 5. Anyway, she got the first prize, and of course the judges were drunk over the process. And in the process, he won blue ribbon for Blue Boy. But it was a wonderful film. And so when we went home, of course, I was in the habit of naming everything on the farm. I named everything. So when we got back on the farm, the boar was named Blue Boy. So that was Blue Boy. Now, I was quite large, and I would get in that barn with that hog, and I would say, "Lay over, Blue Boy." He'd lay over, and I would cut his toenails so that his toenails did not get rough, and he would let me cut his toenails. He would let me scratch him on the belly. He let me do anything. Here I am. He could have killed me. He could have taken advantage of me. Well, as the time progressed, I went to the hospital to have Mary Dell, which ended up to be a C-section. And we come back home, and this was about the middle of November, and it was quite cold. Burl was wearing long underwear and 2 pairs of bib overalls to do chores. So you know it was cold outside. Well, Burl decides, he doesn't talk it over with me, he just decides within himself that he has a bunch of sows, he had about 8 or 9 sows that were in heat, and he wanted them to be farrowed at a certain time. This was one thing that Emil taught him, was to farrow his pigs at a certain time of the year. Don't have them all come at once, so that we had an income. So we had an income every week or 6 weeks for every month of the year. So you had to regulate when the hogs were bred. You wanted, and you had to separate them, and so anyway, lo and behold, Verl looked out the window and he said, Blue Boy is on one of them sows. They're in season. So out the door he went, lickety-split, and of course Blue Boy, he was our pet. You know, Blue Boy would do anything that we wanted him to do. Well, he got out there with a gate with Blue Boy and was going to separate him from his girls. And Blue Boy took one look at him and said, no, you're not. And I looked out the window, and the next thing I knew, I seen Seiler flying up in the air. And I couldn't believe it. And he come down, and Blue Boy was over by him, pawing the ground, foaming at the mouth, and I'm screaming my head off. I laid the baby down. I don't know why I laid her down. I laid her down. I ran outside. I said, Verl, come in the house. You are injured. No, no, no. He went to the machine shed. He got a pitchfork, and he started in, and he started chasing that boar. And anyway, I think the way it was, I put Mary Dell in the car, and I had no telephone, and I went up to Raymond Graves. I drove up to Raymond Graves' house, and I told him that we had had an accident. Blue Boy had pitched Verl up in the air and had cut him, and that Verl was running around the 40-acre field with a pitchfork after Blue Boy. So anyway, Raymond come down and calmed Verl down, and got him in the house, and got Blue Boy in, and we loaded Verl up and took him to the emergency room at the hospital, and we had like 28 stitches in that leg. I mean, it was, we never touched him. He was a pet, and he had these great big long tusks.
You never removed those?
We never removed him. And when he flipped him up in the air, he cut him from his ankle up past his knee. And it was a bad, bad cut. And of course, Dr. Frank J. and Dr. Lawrence Weber, they were the Weber doctors, and of course they hunted on our ground every year, and they were absolutely interested in. And Dr. Paul delivered Verl as a baby. He didn't get out there in time, but he was the baby doctor. So anyway, this was quite a deal, buzz around the emergency room about Verl getting pitched up in the air by a boar, and every time anything would happen to us on the farm, oh, you're the one that had the boar gore you. Yes, I'm the one. And to the day he died, he had a scar that was that wide that went up his leg, and Verl was very muscular, but that scar never did shrink. It was huge that went up. It's a wonder that Blue Boy didn't turn around and kill him. He could have. But anyway, to tell you about the story, Verl was on crutches for over a month from this. He could not hardly walk. And in fact, here I am. I've had a baby. I had a C-section. I had everything wrong with me that could go wrong with me. And so here we are trying to go to Taylorville for Christmas, and Verl can't drive because the accelerator he couldn't push the accelerator. So here we're driving down the thing. I'm pushing the accelerator. Mary Dell's in my arm. and we're trying to get to Taylorville. Oh boy, that was quite an experience. But then when we drove in the driveway at Grandma and Grandpa's, there come Howard and Grandma Mary. They run out that door, and of course Mary didn't give a hoot about me. She just grabbed that baby, and in the house she went with Mary Della. And of course we traveled with a traveling pharmacy almost. We had many bags, different things that we had to take with us. But that was the story of Blue Boy, and then it never ended there because we paid so much for this hog. And then we called the vet. We were very good friends with the vet, and he said, "No, just you need to really isolate Blue Boy and see if he will breed your sows." Well, we did do this, and this trauma and experience that he had with Pearl caused him to go sterile. Caused him to go. He could breed, but no piggies. No piggies would come, and so we had to end up selling him on the market, like for $200-300. So that was a great loss to us. But it was a lesson to us. We always had our hogs detusked. We always ranged them, put rings in their nose and detusked them. So that was the story of the Blue Boy.